Please be seated. Proceedings are resumed. I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we had a suspension based on concerns about whether or not these proceedings were being recorded and broadcast, I was just finishing up my explanation of Section 89 of the Constitution, which deals with the whole question of the laying of the draft order of the governor by the Premier, the process for it, and I was concluding with my reference to Section 89, subsection 7, which completes the process by making it clear that this process cannot be inquired into by the court. Section 89, subsection 7 states the question of the validity of any order by the governor purporting to be made under this section and reciting that a draft of the order has been approved by the Legislative Assembly shall not be inquired into in any court. And I repeat that, Madam Speaker, because there is reported in today's Caymanian Compass the intention of the Leader of the Opposition to investigate the possibility of judicial review of this action, of this resolution of the House. So we shall see, Madam Speaker, where he gets to with that. I am, though, Madam Speaker, saddened that for someone who proclaims that he believes in the democratic process, that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition would seek to challenge what he knows is the will of this House with respect to this matter by threatening to begin legal proceedings. There is little question, I believe, based on the contributions of members, that the vast majority of the members of this House are in favor of the motion to convert our current electoral system from a multi-member constituency-based system to one of single-member electoral districts with each voter having one vote. Madam Speaker, a lot has been said, a lot of contributions have been made, and I value all of them, Madam Speaker. And I'm not going to seek to take to task every single point that was made with which I may not agree. But I want to say this, Madam Speaker. We have had the current system of single-member, of multi-member districts for many years, going back to the earliest days when we had vestrymen and justices. But if one looks at what has transpired in Cayman, you will see, as you would expect, the evolution of the system as the country grew, population grew, appreciation of the doctrine of separation of powers and accountability grew, and as circumstances dictated that we needed to change and to move forward. From the earliest days, Madam Speaker, back in the 1860s, when the Cayman Islands was a dependency of Jamaica, Caymanians decided that they needed to have some form of representation themselves. Their big issue with the dependency of Jamaica status was that we did not have representation in the Jamaican Parliament, and we were not able to contribute to those, and Caymanians were increasingly concerned about being taxed, decisions being taken without any contribution on their part. And so, Madam Speaker, those were the early days of representation. In Cayman, initially, it wasn't even constitutional because there was no constitutional basis for it, but Caymanians always understood the critical importance of having persons who were able to speak on behalf of the people of this country. Madam Speaker, after the vestrymen and justices, I think, generally served 2 terms, and all districts had more than one. I think as perhaps Little Cayman didn't have one, but that system stayed in place for some 129 years until we got our first written constitution. In 1959. 129 years. And that system was replaced with the Legislative Assembly and Executive Council. Madam Speaker, at that point, there were no less than 35 members of the Assembly of Vestrymen and Justices. And for those who think that the numbers that we have in the Legislative Assembly now are high, they should also bear in mind that in 1972, when we got our new constitution and the numbers of elected members were reduced to 12, the Assembly still consisted of 18 members because you had 3 nominated members and 3 official members. So now in 2015, we still only have 20 members, including the 2 official members, the Deputy Governor and the Attorney General. And when the additional seat is added, we will still only have 21 members, with a population now approaching 60,000. And for those who complain about the number of representatives, I've seen some many derogatory comments on CNS, and you hear them on the radio and elsewhere. And there was a very unflattering editorial in the Compass last week, again, just showing general lack of regard for the House, the members of the House, and the work of the House. Well, Madam Speaker, let me say this. As Premier, I believe that this House and this country is fortunate to have the caliber of men and women who have been elected with their abilities, their commitment, and their concern and compassion for the people of this country. It is so easy, Madam Speaker, to sit on the outside and hurl slurs and insults and derogatory remarks, and to say that those who come down here and waste time and are long-winded and make empty promises and poor speeches and the sort of stuff I see written over and over again. But if anyone believes that the business of running this small but extremely complex country and managing its affairs, given the expectations of those who live here, those who are off here, those who come here, those who invest here, need to think again. And many times I wish that I could turn this role that I have over to some of these critics, even for a week, and see how they fare. But Madam Speaker, my point in all of this is that there's a constant evolution of the system of government, and along with it, the electoral system trying to keep pace. The 72 Constitution was around, quite frankly, too long because we bickered about it for too many years. It needed to have been advanced well before 2009. I devoted the best part of 9 years of my political career to battling for a new constitution because I believe so passionately in the need for constitutional change. And I am happy, and one of my great satisfactions, regardless of what happens to me down the road, even becoming premier, did not trump my satisfaction at the fact that we got through a modern constitution on a referendum in 2009. And Madam Speaker, the seats had been increased from 12 to 15 in 1992 to reflect again the increased responsibilities and the burden of work of this House and of then Executive Council, now called Cabinet. And again, when the Constitution was advanced in 2009, the seats increased to the now number, which is 18, with revision again to allow an increase in the number of members of Cabinet to 7. It had been increased to 5 under the changes in 1992. I can tell you, Madam Speaker, sitting where I sit as Premier, 7 ministers is still a little understaffed given the burden of work. Because as Premier, I still have to have constitutional responsibility for three significant subjects because there aren't enough ministers to spread those around to. If anyone believes that the Ministry of Health is a minor matter, they really don't understand. And I am very, very grateful for the able assistance I received from Councillor, the second elected member for Georgetown, who is acting as councillor in that ministry. But I have no doubt in my mind that the role of Premier has evolved to a point where you really need a Premier who does not have a specific ministerial responsibility, given all of the other responsibilities that he or she has in managing the affairs of the country, managing the team of ministers and councillors, doing all the ceremonial duties, giving the speeches, traveling. It is not an easy burden. And for those who think that it is something, they should try it for a week or so, see how they get used to 14-hour days and your phone never off, and 7 days a week. So, Madam Speaker, I believe that the number that we're coming to in terms of elected representatives at 19 is about right. I would like to see one more minister. This is not going to do that, but I'm just giving my perspective, having been Premier for almost 2.5 years now. So, for those who think that the House is overstaffed and that Cabinet has more than it needs, they need to think carefully again about that. Madam Speaker, the point made by the Minister for Education, and I single out her contribution among all, is, I think, one of the most powerful arguments in favor of a move to single-member electoral districts, and one that is overlooked and rarely mentioned. If we continue down the road that we are now, where you've seen Georgetown go from 3 representatives to 4 to 6, now proposing 7, based on population within the district. Well, actually not population, based on registered voters within the district. It ignores one of the other realities, which is that you do not represent just those who are registered voters, you represent everybody. So, Madam Speaker, if we don't do something in terms of of limiting, as the Minister of Education eloquently pointed out, limiting the need, restricting the need to constantly add a new representative to reflect the growing numbers in overall numbers in the district. We're going to get to, in very short order, to 10 representatives for Georgetown, 5 or 6 for West Bay, 8 for Bordentown, and the disparity which exists now with respect to the smaller districts of East End, North Side, Cayman Brac is just going to get greater and greater. By going to single-member electoral districts, it means that as the numbers increase, you can have a redistricting of the various districts to reflect the increases in the population without having to add another member. Because 1,300 members, 1,300 constituents is easy to manage. One person could easily carry 2,500 or 3,000 without a huge problem. So we can't keep growing the number of representatives just to try to keep some sense of equality in the system. And so I think that is one of the most powerful arguments in favor of moving to single member electoral districts. Madam Speaker, I, like others, have had my concerns about the smaller sizes and what can possibly happen in terms of manipulating the vote. After four elections in which I was a candidate successfully, and 2 previous elections in which I worked with the first elected member, the Minister for Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure, PLAHI. The first elected member for Georgetown. I think I have a fair handle on how this thing works. And Madam Speaker, I've heard over and over again about people buying elections. In my experience, at least in the district of Georgetown, you don't buy any elections. You don't buy any elections. You may influence a few votes here or there, perhaps, but you don't buy elections. Let me tell you what wins elections in Cayman. What wins elections is when people believe that you are a good representative or that you will be a good representative. In the early days, they rely heavily on what other people tell them about you. And they rely also on who you are running with, especially and particularly if they trust that person because that person has been a good representative. But I promise you this, the second time around, you better have performed because no amount of pleading on your behalf is going to convince people who had you for 4 years and you turned your back to them, you did not assist them. I don't care how many bills you pass down here and how many motions you bring down here, unless they believe it has impacted them, I am sorry. You are not coming back. I have watched that happen since I've been here. I watched that happen to 6 people. Yeah. That is what matters to people. How you have impacted their lives, their children's lives, whether you have compassion and care about the things that matter to them. Madam Speaker, I had as good a teacher as there's ever been around. And he's sitting right to the right of me. And I pay attention. I pay attention. So, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, let me say this. all of my most of my life, from time I was 14 years old, I was in a service club, service organization in Cayman. I joined Interact when I was 14. I was president of Interact twice, president of Rotaract twice. I've been a Lion for 27 years. I've been elected 15 years. Most of my life has been about service to my community and my people. And if anybody believes that because I will help someone who is in need financially, that means that I am buying my seat, then they really don't understand the meaning of compassion. Madam Speaker, none of us can afford to help all of those who come to us on a daily basis. And do people try to jingle you? Of course they do. And they succeed sometimes too. But in cases where there is genuine need and I have the means personally to help, I have always tried to do so. And I hope we're not going to reach the point where it becomes illegal for a representative who wants to help someone in this community from doing so. But that is to be distinguished, Madam Speaker, from wholesale attempting to influence the vote by buying people huge things. That's not what I'm talking about. But, Madam Speaker, when you have been around for a while, you are able to make the distinctions between what is genuine need and what is not. And, Madam Speaker, on the issue of term limits, I personally battled for years, particularly with the leader of the opposition, over whether or not the office of Premier should be subject to term limits in the new constitution. It was one of the sticking points which allowed that process to be dragged out forever and ever. And in the end, the new constitution says that the Premier can only serve 2 consecutive terms before he or she has to take a break, and then it will become open to them again, if that's what they wish. I don't know why anybody would want that, but then everybody's not me. But, Madam Speaker, I have heard for years and years and years this argument that the elected members, just the regular elected members, should be subject to term limits. When I think of the size of the population in Cayman and the stature and caliber of representative that is necessary to deal with the complex issues in this country, I wonder why we would be keen to turf out of contention experienced representatives to replace them with green, brand new representatives. There is always a turnover, and turnover is good. But surely the job of an elected representative cannot be the only job in the world where less experience is better than more experience. If I were hiring somebody for any job, I would want the most experienced person for the job. And that's how this is. Anyone who believes that you can come in here because you've been successful in another field and automatically that makes you a good representative is someone who is not in touch with reality. This is a vocation like any other in which skills are needed to be learned And there's no schools you can go to learn these skills. You learn them in here, you learn them on the street, and if you're lucky enough to get in cabinet and in government, you learn them there. There is no substitute. I remember when I came in here, full of vim and vigor, having practiced law 12 years, partner in a law firm, thought I knew it all. Knew what? I got taught pretty quickly. A couple of good slap downs, I understood how little I really knew about the business of politics. So, Madam Speaker, I lead a government in which I have a significant number of new members, all extremely able, well-educated, articulate. But they will all tell you the learning curve has been very steep. And the truth is, they still have much more to learn. I am still learning after 15 years. This is a difficult, difficult business. And to go down a road which dismisses experienced, good representatives that the people want in a place with Cayman where the population is so small and the pool from which you pull is even smaller, is not, in my view, wise. That is certainly not something that I would support. Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition has said that moving to one person, one vote, and single member electoral districts will damn ourselves into an eternal fire. Madam Speaker, I know the man is passionate about retaining the current system, but this sounds like desperation. I don't believe any such thing. I believe that we will have challenges because the system is new. But I don't believe that, as he claims, gangs will organize in small constituencies and start garrison politics. That the wealthy, he says, the wealthy can influence the election under one person, one vote. Madam Speaker, the wealthy seek to influence elections under any system anywhere in the world. And if we think it's any different in Cayman, you tell me one government that has been elected without the support of the business community. I don't know about either one of them. And I have won, and I have lost, and I have won again. I know what I'm talking about. Madam Speaker, a number of members who have spoken. There's only one speaker, that's you. A number of members who have spoken have said that this government does not have a mandate for one person, one vote, single member electoral districts. Well, Madam Speaker, we, the People's Progressive Movement, have advocated this from 2002 consistently. It is contained in our manifesto. We won 9 of 18 seats. And anyone who joined this administration joined it in the full knowledge that we had campaigned on a platform for single member electoral districts and one person, one vote. So they may argue, the leader of the opposition and the second elected member for West Bay may argue about the semantics of all of that. The third. The second is the Minister of Education. They may argue the semantics of all of that. But I believe firmly, and especially after my discussions with you, that we have, you who are a member of this party, that we have more than a mandate for one person, one vote, and single member electoral districts. And so, Madam Speaker, I don't buy the arguments put forward by the two members on the opposition benches who have argued against this. I'm not sure, three members. I'm not sure precisely what the position of the third elected member for West Bay is. He didn't quite say. He simply said he had been told he could vote his conscience, so I guess we will see in the fullness of time. But I don't buy the arguments saying that this is retrograde, that this is going to take us back, that this is going to create similar situations as has occurred in some other countries. All progressive countries that I know, all developed countries I know, either are or are moving to the principle of one person, one vote. And if Cayman is to continue to progress, we have, Madam Speaker, to also move with the times. Madam Speaker, at the risk of breaching the rule against anticipating a motion, there is another motion to come shortly, which I hope will be acceded to by this House, which will again continue to evolve our parliamentary system and bring us closer to what are considered the modern rules with respect to the separation of powers, further enhance the status of this parliament that we are all honored and privileged to be members of. And so, Madam Speaker, this evening we stand on the threshold of a new electoral dispensation. And all members of this House, I believe, are deeply conscious of the significance of the vote that we make this evening. It will be one of those events, one of those changes that is written about for years and years. That struck me, Madam Speaker, with such force over the course of the last couple of days as I was reading our constitutional history and the significance of the events that occurred and how they have changed the face of not just our constitution, our constitutional framework and our electoral framework, but the face of the country altogether. Madam Speaker, this is one of the most significant constitutional and electoral changes that this country has made. And I am proud to be Premier at this time. I'm proud to lead a government who believes in this significant step. And I ask again, Madam Speaker, all members of the House to give the motion their full support.
The question is, be it now therefore resolved that the Legislative Assembly hereby approves the draft order of Her Excellency the Governor for giving effect to the recommendations contained in the report, and be it further resolved that an order then be subsequently made in terms of the draft so that the changes in the representation of the members of the Legislative Assembly and determination of the boundaries of the 19 single-member electoral districts are provided therein will come into effect upon the next dissolution of the House. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no.
No.
Madam
think
Speaker, may
ayes.
we have it?
The white, please.
Madam Clerk,
Oh, well, that's a given.
please call for division.
Honorable Alden McLaughlin,
Aye.
Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Honorable Kurt Tibbett,
Aye.
Honorable Osmond Bodden,
Aye.
Honorable Wayne Panton,
Aye.
Honorable Marco Archer,
Aye.
Honorable Tara Rivers,
Aye.
Honorable Anthony Eden,
Aye.
Mr. Winston Connolly,
Aye.
Mr. Roy McTaggart,
Aye.
Mr. Joseph Hugh,
Aye.
Mr. Alva Saku,
Aye.
Honorable Makiba Bush,
No.
Mr. Barney Bush, Captain Eugene Ebanks,
No.
Mr. Ezra Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Arden McLean,
Aye.
The results of the divisions are as follows: 13 ayes, 3 noes, 1 absentee. The motion is carried. Recognize the Honorable Premier. Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the adjournment of this honorable House until Wednesday morning at 10 a.m.
The question is that this honorable House be adjourned until Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The House now stands adjourned until 10 a.m. as the ayes have it.